Hi guys, good time of day to all of you. Here on the Internet Chess Club, this is Grandmaster Alex Yermolinsky. Well, second half of the World Championship match just started today, game 7 out of the 12 games. And today I was there in our virtual broadcasting booth together with my old friend Grandmaster Ronan Hardsby. And we witnessed this game that went all of how many moves? 33 moves. Okay, so we'll go through the game and we also, since this is my last chance, I will not be involved in working on this match anymore due to scheduling conflicts. Well, my last chance to share my opinions with you on the World Championship match, this one in general, also on the state of chess affairs, and maybe talk about the future of chess. So I very much welcome your input, your suggestions, questions, opinions, and all that. Let's just stay active, and I will have I'll have the chat over there open, and well, I hope we can make it a good show. Anyway, in the meantime, I'll start moving, well, following the game, moving the pieces. Now, Karjakin was white again. That's a relatively new rule that they have in matches now. They break up the pattern of alternating colors at midway of the match, making it this way that one player gets 2 whites in a row in the middle, the other one gets to play the first and the last game with the white pieces. I don't really know if it's a useful thing or not. Well, I guess a lot depends on how the match goes and players that are involved in the match. This one so far gives me no indication that color, white or black, has any kind of impact on the game. Well, it seems like the both players they avoid theoretical battles. It's not like they play non-theoretical stuff. What they play is the stuff that's very well known. It's just how to put it, toothless. Well, I know it's hard to do anything against this Berlin or the Marshall there, and I'm not really an E4 player, so I can't really weigh in on that one. But this game started with D4, which is more of my territory. And I was very happy. I was really excited when Karjakin played D4. And then in the Slav, he played Knight C3, which is a less popular move order to the standard Knight F3. But no, it has its fine points. So I saw that Knight C3, and now, well, black has such a choice, right? Can play early DC4 that leads to some exciting positions where black plays B5 and gets to keep the pawn, possibly. Else, of course, there is E5 move. That's theoretical, but alright, I kinda expected Knight F6, which is the most solid. And now white takes advantage of the move order by playing E3. Now, what's the difference? Well, the difference is that if black now plays bishop f5, which happened a long time ago in some Capablanca game, I think. Well, that's the main point of the Slav, right? To get the bishop outside the pawn chain and then play e6. They get to do this if the white knight is on f3 and the other one is still back on b1, but not here. White takes, and now he has this move, queen b3. So the attack against b7 and pressure against d5 practically forces black to an extremely awkward, inconvenient move bishop back to c8. Well, everything else is actually quite worse. Putting the queen on d7 and exposing it to this stuff along with bishop b5 pin, it's not a good idea. So this stuff is generally very well known, and obviously both players are quite familiar with that. So this move order, and now Magnus took a little bit of time, but not really a whole lot of time. Maybe No, well, obviously preparation is a big part of today's chess, particularly for a world championship match. And Karjakin is known to be able to switch to d4. And Magnus had no way of knowing if Sergei's main opening is going to be e4 or d4. And perhaps we'll see more d4. So I'm sure he prepared the Slav. And then against this move order in particular, it was the Chebanenko, that old Moldovan master that opened a new chapter in the theory of Slav defense, teaching his students. The best of them was Viktor Bologan, pretty strong grandmaster even to this day. Yeah. So the idea is to control the b5 square or play b5 when needed. And there are some possibilities of transpositions, even to different openings. That's exactly what happened in the game, because right here, at this moment, having a choice between knight f3, which is kind of like the main line of the Chebanenko, and it goes usually b5. Alright, now what? You want to keep the tension, and then this. Black has the sharp move e5. Many games here, it's the main line of the Chebanenko. Well, white has some ideas, but nothing really conclusive. I understand, of course, that we at this stage, right? 6 games left. Before that, they said, oh, short match, 12 games. One of our listeners and viewers today said, well, maybe 12 games is just not enough because they're averse to risk and they think of losing a game, the white pieces would be like a disaster you can't recover from. 24 games, supposedly, you can take more chances, and even if you lose with white, you will have plenty of games to get back into the match, maybe, but to me it's mainly the mindset, not the number of games. Alright, if Sergei doesn't want to enter those theoretical battles, of course, he had no way of knowing. Magnus could play anything. The Nimza, some other variations of Queen's Gambit. Well, but still, that's what you have your team for, and that's what you have your time, your months and months to prepare. Well, I really thought at this stage of the match, that's the time when I'm not saying throw caution to the wind. But I mean, if not now, then when? Okay, suppose white doesn't want this. So Sergei played bishop d3. In my opinion, it's probably the most toothless line, that white can choose. And precisely for the reason shown by Magnus here. Honestly, I prefer the move queen c2. Black doesn't want to take on c4 before white moves the bishop away from f1. That's the tempo, could be very useful. Just imagine if the game goes along the same lines. Now, white just has a free tempo, because he took on c4 like they do in Queen's Gambit, accepted in one move with the bishop. But black eventually is going to have to play c6, c5. Or if you compare it, say, to the Miran variation, the same thing in the Miran. Black waits, puts the knight on d7, and then waits for bishop d3, and then they take. Here, white just gains this free move, queen c2. Now, if you don't think it's important, well, how about this? I go back here, and then you play your c5, and I say, okay, thank you. And I win a pawn, win the game, most likely. It's obvious, so I'm sure after queen c2, if Sergei played this, Magnus would probably do something else. I don't think he would have gone d takes. Alright, there are different things. You can go semi-Slav. It's a possibility. Well, you can go like Gatakamsky likes to do, the Schlechter, which is a mix of the Slav, hybrid of the Slav and the Grunfeld, and now with additional a6 thrown in. So this is like the Tiger Woods kind of mix, if you get my drift. Anyway, But still, queen c2 is the way to go. That's the move here. And when they played bishop d3, obviously black could have gone e6, but this is the safest. Now, why? Because through some move transposition, we actually arriving into a pretty standard situation of the queen's gambit accepted. One second. Okay. Well, competitors. They want my time now. No, I'm busy with you guys, doesn't matter, doesn't matter who calls me now, doesn't matter, if it's whoever. Okay, you have my complete attention, all 100%. And by the way, where are you? Can somebody come up and say hello, just to be polite, and I'll be happy to say hi. Yeah, I know, you're probably getting a little bit tired and jaded, from this whole thing, And besides, it comes right after the broadcast, and maybe some of you already sat there for 3 hours, listen to me talk. Anyway, I hope somebody shows up. So anyway, now, why transposition to queen's gambit accepted? Well, look, the bishop took 2 moves, right? And the pawn took 2 moves. So once c5 is played, and it's going to be played next, it's just exactly the position from queen's gambit accepted. Only with extra move played, taken by both sides. Okay, say you, queen's gambit accepted. What is this? The greatest thing since sliced bread? It's just an opening. Why can't white, count an advantage there? Well, normally he can, but they rarely put the knight out on c3 that early. Well, truth to tell, like in this position, since the knight is already on c3, maybe the only challenging line is to play a4. That's what Botvinnik used to do, right? He played at the match with Petrosian. Now, white is playing for the isolated pawn, but his pawn is on a4. So that before square, that's always going to be occupied by the black knight. And it's hard for white later to set up his typical thing with the battery because of knight before. The pawn really should be on a3. But otherwise you don't stop b5. When you think of the queen's gambit accepted as an opening, right, black plays c5 and plays b5. Just like it happened in the game, right? So goes c5 there and b5. Well, he's in no hurry to take on d4, because the early capture on d4, white takes back with the pawn and then the bishop is open. So white plays with the isolated pawn. Now, I don't even know if it was in the cards for Karjakin's preparation, but in my opinion, if you're a d4 player, there are so many openings, and queen's gambit accepted as maybe the most direct one, but there are some others. Oh, guys, look at this, Soren. Okay. Sigurdur, Christopher, David, Russell, man. Oh, good that you're here. Anyways, I'm happy. Look, but here, white cannot move the bishop out, but I'm trying to get into Karjakin's head and try to understand, what his preparation is about. In my opinion, if you play d4 on move 1, you have to be ready to accept the isolated pawn positions. They just happen there from many openings, particularly straight up from queen's gambit accepted. What if Magnus played the queen's gambit accepted? What exactly was Karjakin's preparation? Maybe he would play some different line. Maybe e4 on move 3. But anyway, it's all speculation. The fact of the matter is, yeah, we go for the isolated pawn. But there is the problem. We put the bishop there, and black is not gonna take on d4. Oh, I got plenty of nice moves to play. Bishop there, or You know, the knight comes to d7. And then possibly development of the queen could go to b6. It's just so difficult to force black into this capture. And white, no, kind of runs out of moves. What they do here, no, most of the time they take on c5. Yeah, that's a theoretical position too. What else is new? Then you can play e4. Even in this position, having the knight on c3 is not really so great for white. Maybe it's time to talk about this and say why. Alright. Okay, we're just gonna do this. The heck. Standard issue, Queen's Gambit accepted, right? Now, say castles, like a6. Now, there is this move, for example. Just, I mean, I played it, and it's Kramnik played it, if you don't believe me. Point is, after b5, we do this. Hey, b4 doesn't come with the tempo. Now, if b4 is played, then white considers this an okay position. Now, they have different approaches here possible. The sharpest is always to go e4. Give up this pawn and then open the attack on the e file with some idea of d5 if black takes. If not, you drive the pawn to e5. There are some classic examples from games of Kasparov and many others. The point really is to move the pawn to e5, drive the knight away, and then try to operate on the king side. I mean, since the times of Karjakin, you know, that's the blueprint how you play d4 openings. I mean, there are some other scenarios where you play more Capablanca style, putting pressure against the backward pawn on the c file, but here you cannot keep that pawn backward. It's gonna come to c5. Okay, anyway, in this situation the knight is on c3, so, well, when this whole thing happened, you know, alright, if you play the same thing, you know, first of all, white spends some time, he can't really play e4, the knight will come under attack, but on this b4, and now you have to move the knight somewhere, and e2, b1, just nothing there. In fact, you know, black could benefit from having this pawn on b4. So white is not even quite safe. And if the safety was the main thing for Karjakin, then he played the way he played. Bishop to e2. But bishop e2 line, you know, neither in the Miran variation, which is related to this, nor in the Queen's Gambit accepted, it's not much. No, right, Kramnik played it. So let's go back to this whole thing, right? One variation of the Queen's Gambit accepted. It's also somewhat related to our study. Some games, Kramnik Anand, okay, c5, castles, a6. We take. Maybe queen straight at this. Now, pulls the bishop back. Well, very innocuous, but, well, there is a little bit of poison in this. Now, black goes b5, which, by the way, I don't think Anand ever did. And Anand is one of the greatest experts on the Queen's Gambit accepted. Now, that's where a white gets to do something. They play b3, then they play a4. Obviously, if the pawn goes to b4, then the white knight sidesteps it and comes to c4. White actually had quite a lot of success playing the endgame. And b5 is unnecessary. I don't know, if I start with knight d7, b3, b6, I think this is how Anand plays it. Actually, I had a game against Anand exactly like this. It was drawn. Yeah, now we come into our thing. Now, once again, the knight on c3 is just... That's the whole purpose of this move order. Coming to the Queen's Gambit accepted from the Slav, because the knight is already on c3. And in this line. Okay, bishop b7. Black is in a hurry to take. He could actually take later, because all these positions with the isolated pawn, they have one thing in common. You know, where white tries to answer the idea of developing of this bishop with the d5 thrust. But it has to be timed very well. Usually the b pawn moves forward, the bishop is not on b7 yet, and at that moment white strikes with d5. That's the best. But the bishop is never on a2. The bishop is most likely on d3 or b3 or maybe b3. Kramnik was getting those positions from the bishop b3 line. But here, how to force black to take on d4? It's impossible. And white simply runs out of moves. b3 obviously doesn't fall into a pattern of playing with the isolated pawn. Now, the knight on c3 is shaky and black's probably better already. So, okay, he played what we expected him to play. And as I said, maybe it would have some points in it if the knight stayed back on b1. Knight c6. Now, interesting. I was thinking about something which actually we never really looked at this. We discussed it with Ronan. Ronan's suggestion was to play the knight to d4. Now, it looks logical, actually, to open the f3 square for the bishop. Now, knight c6 was actually a surprising move. Possibly Karjakin knew the game between Kramnik and Tomaszewski that went queen takes d1. And now Kramnik played this strange-looking move, knight d2, but it has some points. Bring the knight to b3, and yeah. And then let me see what happened in that game in particular. Yeah, castles was played. And then Kramnik played this, knight b3. Now, obviously, the a5 square, right? That's where he's aiming. And in fact, moving the knight away from e3 allows white maybe to trade bishops if needed, but most likely to play f3 and then e4, grabbing some space and restricting the bishop on b7 and the knight on f6. So Tomaszewski went bishop b4 to cover the square, and then they had some action there, and eventually Kramnik won. In our game, Magnus played... No, it's not a new move. I found some old game of Tartakover. From 1925, already knight c6 was played. But the question is, what about this move, knight d4? We wanted to see knight d4. Does anybody have any idea what's happening after this move? Now I assume bishop takes c5, right? And then bishop f3. Once again, white is hoping that black will take. Now pawn takes back, and now you have your bishop in play. It's probably... Ronan said rook c8. Yeah, we looked at this line. Knight a4, trade, and now bishop takes. Now, there are some tricks here. For example, if black castles, then he has to deal with this double attack. He may be able to get it back, right, in this line. With this shot. Yeah, but we actually thought, we looked quite deeper, right? We even thought of this move. Trying to break open the queen side. And after this, actually queen h5 may be gaining in strength a little bit. So now, I don't know, you can do this, right? Yeah, after knight e2 check, the queen will protect. Yeah, will protect the bishop. So black is forced to take this way. Now pawn takes, and we have some extra pawn and some weaknesses around the black king. It's sort of a fantasy line, but no, knight d4 nonetheless was interesting. I don't think white's risking too much. So I'm trying to balance my desire to see a sharper game with the understanding of the implications that you feel the weight of the whole world on your shoulders, obviously. Say you lose the game with white. Yeah, Peter Leko lost the game with white to Vladimir Kramnik in their match. Was it game first game, I think. Then he got it back. Then he won with black. I don't know. Speculating, we're talking about the match strategy. Well, we can talk about this if you guys just give me some pointers where to take the conversation. Anyway, knight d4 didn't happen. So he goes knight d2. That was the confirmation that he was actually looking at to repeat Kramnik's ploy. But now it's different, because in reply to this, black is not going to trade queens. He's going to do this. Now, in the middle game, this knight is simply silly. Now it's black who can line up his bishops against the white king, and actually black, I think, is better here. So that knight c6 move was very clever by Magnus. Is it possible that Magnus expected this whole thing, and he thought, okay, this is what Karjakin would do. He would try to repeat Kramnik's game. Because knight c6 came instantaneously. Knight d2 takes. And now, what else to do? You put the knight over there, you still have to develop your pieces. So it went into this. What did we look at? We look at various things here. The game pretty much stays within bounds of equality. We looked at this, right? The most cynical. There's nothing wrong with that. White's only hope is to get the knight to c5. If he gets that, then he'll get the bishop pair. I didn't see how it was possible. At some moment, when the white rook leaves a1, knight b4 will be played, opening up the attack on the knight and on the abandoned pawn on a2. What else? We looked at f5. I don't know. This. f5. Yeah, realistically, black doesn't have any grounds to play for an advantage, but I mean, it's Magnus, right? The best player in the world. Can he do something like this? It's actually exciting. Maybe he looked at this and didn't like it. What about this move? Knight a2. Alright, so you take my pawn. Now I got knight c3. Or you take again. This is when white runs into trouble. Pin. And you can protect this way. And you protect here, I take, and then I back rank you. Actually, the occupation of the c3 and or c6 square, it's probably the main point in those symmetrical positions with the C and D files open. There are tons of classical examples on this. So it's not entirely unusual concept. How would white meet it, by the way? Why wasn't f5 played? No, I can play bishop b2. Granted. Trade. Put the knight on c3. So he takes, take back. We can protect this knight with the pawn. I mean, maybe there is some concern that the A file, but White also has to take care of his king. There will be some back rank issues if you move the rook too far away. It's going to be capture on A2 followed by mate. So perhaps black is in time, to get his pieces to correct squares. What he needs is king E7, maybe rook D7, and then the other rook is ready to go. I mean, black can try to play this for an advantage. It's a pretty strong knight. I was saying during the broadcast, that it's easy to lay the blame for all this at the feet of the challenger and say Karjakin's afraid of Carlsen and he's just trying to make as many draws as possible, hoping, that somehow he makes 12 of them, or maybe gets lucky in one of the games and or I don't know, brings it to Rapid, where Magnus is supposed to be a big favorite, and Blitz, where it would become random, and then whatever, and then win the Armageddon game on the last draw or whatever. Okay, when you say this, okay, maybe it's little demeaning, degrading for Sergei Karjakin, who really hasn't done anything wrong in his career to be viewed in this way. But what about Magnus? You're given 12 games to prove that you're a better player. It's not like anybody needs this proof. Your track record in the past 6 years clearly puts you as the best player in the world. And now what? So some guy, how's Karjakin different from all these guys, Magnus beat? Okay, he's Magnus's age, granted. So there is no... I know Magnus loves playing against old guys. I mean, he beat Anand twice in matches, we remember that. He has great record against Kramnik lately. And against everybody. Every once in a while he loses a game like to Topalov. But I mean, in general, Magnus, as all great champions of the past, first and foremost, put aside, swept aside the old generation. Kasparov did it before him, and Karpov did it, and many did. Fischer for sure did. Now, okay, against his contemporaries. Yeah, Nakamura, special story, right? Caruana. Alright, so all plus score, but Caruana did hurt Magnus quite a few times. But on the scale of 0 to 10, how interesting this match is for average chess fan? Personally, give it 2. Alright, if you look at the chess content, I think you're being too generous. I would give it 1. Okay, this is the poorest chess content, imaginable. Now, I understand that it happened before. I'm not even comparing it with previous World Championship matches. None of them actually was interesting. Literally none. I mean, the World Championship match, I agree with Gelfand. He said, we don't come here to entertain anybody. This is a World Championship match, we come here to play. No, he said play. The word is misused here. Well, that's so much at stake in terms of, I don't know, money and place in chess history, whatever it is. If anybody studies it. Well, it just, I don't know. Karpov-Korchnoi matches. I wouldn't say that they were the most interesting events at the time they were played. No, I wouldn't say so. I really don't know. I think that's what World Championship match simply brings the worst, from chess content. Well, however, we of course get many more people following it because it's the only high-profile event. Losing it is a risky proposition, but okay, we'll talk later about this. Gelfand won one great game against Anand, yeah, and then lost in 17 moves. So I'm thinking about taking 2 to tango. Now, what about Magnus? I mean, this position on the board after move b3. No, well, everything went well in the opening for Magnus. He was able to kind of trick Karjakin out of the Slav into the Queen's Gambit accepted. And no, if not Magnus, who's gonna try? Obviously, it's a long way before Black can claim any advantage, but I'm personally surprised that f5 was not played. Night before. Similar ideas, but with some difference. Well, this move, I don't know if it's necessarily the best move, but we expected Sergei to play this. And here another moment where I was disappointed with Carlsen's decision. He played here rook c8. Now, what's the purpose of this move? Put the rook on open file. Yeah, we'll understand that. No, the real purpose of this move was to invite what happened in the game. Because Magnus saw that he would make a draw in this endgame down a pawn. So from this position, after 16 moves, he basically invites a drawish variation, which Karjakin grabs for 2 reasons. First of all, it's probably within his match strategy. And secondly, he even gets the better of it, at least visually, extra pawn. Now, did Magnus have to play this move? Of course not. Don't tell me that he didn't look at this move. It's White's near only idea to trade this knight for the bishop and then, whatever, obtain the bishop pair or draw that bishop away and then grab b4, and the rest is just simple tactics. Nobody's going to blunder a piece. But Black could just stop it with the move rook b8 and simply ask the opponent, all right, let's play chess. Let's play this position. Well, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna take on b4 and give me the 2 bishops like you did in that game where you took on c4? What was it? Game 4, where arguably Magnus came closest to the win and, only Fortress stopped him. So why not? Well, okay, once again, Svilan, okay. Hikaru Nakamura said that all 12 games end in a draw. This will kill classical chess once and for all. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's questionable. It's questionable. But before I answer this question, I love the question. I want to make a point that I look at this position, that it takes 2 to tango. It's not just White killing this, because Karjakin, oh, good, I can make 6 draws with White, easy, right? And then I can, whatever, somehow scratch and claw and make another 6 draws with Black. Ironically, it's not like it's working in this match. Carlsen's biggest winning chance came with Black in game 4 so far in the match. Karjakin's arguably only winning chance came in game 5, where he defended with Black and then played a pawn sacrifice, and according to computers had attacking chances. Well, in that situation I agree with it. Wasn't that obvious, and Karjakin played instead a solid move, and he said, I spent time, I just couldn't see the end of it, and I played a solid move, and I knew it was going to be a draw. So that was, maybe it was the best game of the match, I don't know. So far. But here, why is that Magnus Carlsen invites even a worse side of a draw only because he knows it's going to be a draw by playing rook c8? Why didn't he play rook to b8 and just continue the game? Now, I cannot honestly tell you that Black is better here, but it's up to Magnus Carlsen to outplay his opponent. Well, we deal with this time and again, all of us, with no exception, get to play sometimes against lower rated opponents, or in a situation when we would like to keep things going, try to win the game. And then you have to be very patient, and your main task is to prevent all further simplifications. And Rook b8 answers the call. I really have no idea why it wasn't played. Unless, Magnus somehow mentally resigned to this and started thinking like his opponent does. All right, I made a draw with black, so now, whatever, now I have 3 whites to... I thought that as world champion, Magnus should be above this kind of considerations. And he could play for a win with either color. Okay, staying within bounds of reason, which certainly is the case in this position. Alright, now to the question. Will the skill classical chess once and for all? Maybe it would have if anybody was watching. It's not like the whole world, millions upon millions, hundreds of millions of people, were waiting for this match, and now they're bitterly disappointed. This is not World Cup soccer, all right? I guess the thing is that nobody's watching anyway. Now, it's not like the general public, get outraged and flood, the whatever, cable companies with complaints that they paid $35 in pay-per-view to watch, every game, and they were given this boring listless draws instead. No, there's never going to be any kind of backlash. Guys, nobody really cares if you play classical, if you play one move in 3 days, or if you play blitz or rapid, forget about it once and for all. So what, is it 1993 over again, and we're gonna get Garry Kasparov running around, with his eyes popping out of its sockets, saying, we're gonna bring chess on American television, I'm in America now, and this is my friend Bob Rice, or whatever his name was, some lawyer, and that's the PCA, we're gonna do it professional, we're gonna have this, sponsors. Yeah, they had them, they came and they went. Now, really, well, we're doing it for us, for chess players. We're doing it for ourselves. First and foremost, we need to think what's better for us. Now, yeah, I don't know, I agree. I agree with this. This thing has to go. It cannot continue this way. Now, to me, I mainly blame the whole idea of a world championship match and the whole idea of a world champion retaining his title. I know Magnus has spoken against this. This is wrong. Bronstein idea to play several frames in blitz and rapid. I don't know if maybe it was Bronstein. Well, anyway, Grishuk said long time ago, that we should only play rapid. I mean, what makes people reject moves like Rook b8 and invite Rook c8 is fatigue. Now, Magnus, I know he plays basketball and whatever, and Carlsen, and Karjakin, Sergei Karjakin, prepared physically for this match and is no slouch himself, and arguably, maybe the second most fit chess player, among the top players. I don't know how distant second he is to Carlsen, but he seems to be in reasonable shape. Trained, by the way, by playing tennis with some ranked, professional woman, on the tour. Well, anyway, point is that these guys, they still get tired because there's just, you think about this, you get more tired from preparing to the game than actually playing it. When you just play, you're a player, you're a chess player. The key word there is player. So this is the main point of rapid. I don't know about blitz, whatever, that can be debated. Obviously, it takes particular training and different mindset. But shorter time controls would allow you to play more games. The more games you play, then less important would preparation become, right? Okay, you take some chances, you play this move, you lose, okay, you still have. Imagine if they played 4 games instead of 1 in one day. Of game 20 in 25 minutes with 10-second increment. Then you can have it. You can have your 48 game, world championship match if you wish. I would still think that a world championship match would be a bad idea because there's only 2 guys. So my solution to this is just once and for all, get rid of this world championship match thing. Well, maybe this is how chess was supposed to be played back then, when the people were separated by great geographical distances and I don't know, would wait for American champion Capablanca to come to Europe and meet with Lasker. It doesn't matter. No, it's different now. Just compare this with candidates tournaments. Remember the drama, the excitement, how many people in contention. 2 rounds before the end of that candidates tournament that Karjakin won. More than half the players had chances to win it. Even Giri, who had all draws then. Everybody, maybe except for Hikaru, and poor Veselin Topalov. 6 people had a chance. Do that. Kasparov says classical chess is like classical music. 1% of the population. Okay, what's the population there? Okay, now, there are some people who simply don't listen to any kind of music. Yeah, there are people like this. Now, I understand that probably a lot of people listen to music, and 1% of those, would still be a lot of people. Now, we're talking chess, right? It takes a little bit more familiarity to enjoy, watching chess than to just listen to music. Alright, now, and you take 1% out of this. How many of us are watching this thing? How many people now are watching this show? I don't know. Probably maybe a dozen or whatever, I understand I don't get the numbers, some other people may get, Peter Swidler or whatever. But honestly, and then you take 1% of those, and why should we go with 1%? And besides, what's this 1%? It just sounds like, remember, 1%? Who's the 1%? Remember Occupy Wall Street, 1%? Why should we cater to those people? Am I 1%? I'm in nowhere. There is no way to look at me, that they would put me to 1%. Absolutely not. If the majority of chess players don't want this, why are we having this? Who wants it? Even Magnus doesn't want it. He went on a record, a year ago when he was watching World Cup, all this drama unfolding, Karjakin coming back from the dead, other stuff, Elyanov having a great run, terrible blunders by Grishuk, whatever. This whole thing was drama. And he said it's a great tournament, it should be improved, meaning more money given to it. And then this is the best, this is the world championship. Now, of course, then his manager, went into this damage control. That's not what Magnus really... No, the Magnus said exactly what he meant. Okay, and you... whatever, Mr. Agdestein, you're just not going to twist the words. Alright, it's just not going to cut it. We know exactly what Magnus meant. Yet they made Magnus play this thing again. Now, I hope, for my own sanity's sake, that Magnus wins this match somehow, and then he says, no mas, I will not play another one. After all, the guy's 26 years old. Is that the best use of his best time in his life, to sit there and play the matches like this? Clearly, it doesn't seem like he's enjoying himself. A picture of Magnus playing World Rapid Championship and playing this is just pictures of 2 different people. One guy is just a guy, who enjoys being who he is, and really does what he does best. And the other is the picture of a guy, who's forced to go through some motions. Now, who are we doing this for? For Magnus Carlsen? For whom? Look, no good commentary, Swillan, will save a game like this. Now, what am I gonna do? Bring up all this computer analysis or whatever. There's nothing to analyze here. Literally, we bending over backwards trying to find this little, specks of gold dust, in those dry desert, of symmetrical positions that we get in this match. Now, as I said, the World Championship match brings the worst in both participants and in the game itself. Now, so going back to Kasparov, it doesn't mean it should go away. Okay, Mr. Garry Kasparov, look, Kasparov is still a good player, right? He proved it in playing Blitz in St. Louis. Fine, let him have it. There are plenty of guys who he can play Kramnik now. After all, Fischer and Spassky played 20 years after. How about commemorating the great battle in London in the year 2000 in the year 2020? Fine. Well, this is for 1%. Well, actually, once it happens, we will probably look at this with interest. Maybe that's how it is. Maybe that's the reason why people enjoy classical music, and the 1%. Maybe, I don't know, maybe just because it's probably not even 1% of the music that played on radio waves or people's computers. Do you really believe it's 1%? I mean, it's probably 100th of percent. But nonetheless, besides, it's always wrapped up in this talk, well, yeah, the great line of champions, Steinitz and Lasker, and you, Volodya, says Garry Kasparov, you're now the torchbearer of this tradition. First of all, did anybody ask, the old dead white men, Steinitz and Lasker, if they even care that anybody carries this tradition? I mean, I'm honestly, I'm shocked, that if anybody told me back in the 97 when FIDE had a new president, Kirsanov and Zhinov, and they announced this knockout world championship. If anybody told me that 19 years later I'll be sitting there at another world championship match and looking at this, I would just laugh at it. I'll tell them, people, we enter in 21st century. And yet, Anyway, to end this rant, I tell you what, it's time to end this once and for all. Now, if Karjakin wins, it's never gonna end. We're gonna have another split because there is no way Sergey, would accept any kind of changes. He would say, fine, I'm a world championship now. I beat Magnus Carlsen himself. Now you take it away from me. We've seen it already with Kramnik, and it's not like Kramnik was not deserving, or even Karjakin. Karjakin would be deserving. Everybody is deserving, but deserve has nothing to do with that. That's the format, that does not produce good chess. So if Karjakin wins, then it's going to be, I predict it's going to be another rift there. Another new organization and some kind of, I don't know what. Plus we have the politics, the new Iron Curtain, we have Russia over there, or the God knows what's happening in the world now. But anyway, what I wish the best, for Magnus to win and then end this whole thing and really move chess forward. Khalifman deserving. Look, Khalifman was never a world champion. Khalifman was a world champion of 1999. Anybody of you who follows sports, sometimes a team gets hot and it wins a championship, whatever it is. You can even call it the World Series. Whatever, if you're a baseball fan. There shouldn't be such thing as a sitting world champion. Season ends, there are no world champion anymore. Yeah, and your world champion Chicago Cubs, yeah, give me. So how many years from 1906? Whatever. Yeah, they got good, a few years ago. Before that, the Kansas City Royals, then this is how it is. I mean, so that's my answer to Kharifman, Kasimdzhanov, Ponomarev thing. When they played in this tournament, they won it. And they deserve to win it. Time control, 1 hour for 45 minutes. For 1 hour for 45 moves. I don't know. This guy Skvortsov. He thinks it has to be 40 minutes. I don't want to nitpick. You know, I really don't know. I really don't know. To me, it is hard to tell. Make a tournament like 1948. Okay, if you want to save the beautiful classical chess, yeah, we had pretty good candidate tournaments. Imagine if that last tournament which was played were in Moscow, right? Yeah, if we had 2 more players. So who was missing there? There was... Okay, MVL wasn't there. Suppose we put MVL and Magnus Carlsen himself. To the field of fate. The one that Karjakin won. Now, it adds, you know, double round robin, it adds, you know, actually 2 more rounds. That's 18 round tournament. That's plenty enough. Okay, now this, play it every year. How's that? This is your end of the year, you know, great world championship tournament. And everybody starts from scratch. Now, how you select players over there? I don't get paid, you know, to work out a selection procedure. I mean, there may be some qualifications, some ratings, some whatnot. Some places retained from the previous championship. Yeah, maybe so. More players the merrier. I don't think that shortening the field to 4 players would benefit. I think it would make it worse. Besides, you know, we're watching this thing online, right? Isn't it nice to have 5 games? And when the one game is like this, it's a dud. Okay, gone. Okay, guys, you know, like, we're not blaming you. Maybe preparation didn't work out. No, it's a draw. No, go away. Now, you know, and rest and prepare and come back and play a better game tomorrow. And now we're going to be watching Caruana playing against MVL. Or whatever. Or Nepomniachtchi going against Nakamura. There'll be more games and more fun. So that's why I'm not really saying anything about the time controls. I quoted the opinion of Grishuk, you quoted me Nakamura, that I don't know anything about it. Okay, I know some, but it's just an opinion. But as far as the whole idea of world championship and the world champion rather, and that guy, that king, you know, that wearing the silly crown and sitting there on his throne like this. I mean, what is this? I mean, just get rid of it. Alright, so he plays rook c8. Okay, now that was obvious. And then get to this, right? During the game, when I was analyzing with Ronan, I thought that white had more chances. Now I looked a little bit, that's why the delay at the start of the show. And I can see now that black holds a draw. I said already, you know, there will be no world championship matches ever. You know, if you... Okay, well, it says, if I were, maybe I will be. Okay, give me some time, you know. I'll pull a few strings, you know, like call up some people I used to know. Well, maybe indeed it's time for me to get off my butt, you know, and go clean up the house. I might just do that. Grand Slam in tennis, yeah, it's an idea too. Well, anyway. Kick around some ideas. I think it's important if the sitting world champion, Magnus Carlsen, will say, okay, fine. Thank you, Steinitz, thank you, Lasker and Alekin and Capablanca and Kasparov and Karpov. And all of you guys, I love you guys, but I just don't want to do this anymore. Now, seriously, can FIDE, you know, then say, alright, this guy quits, you know, we're going to have our new world champion and they run the same thing. No, not with Magnus sitting there. Nah, this thing will wither and die. I hope it does. Anyway, to this position. Now, I said, didn't really look at before. I said, what if before here? No, it's a principled move, right? To prevent what happened in the game. Because what happened in the game was this blockade, right? And white had a real hard time making use of his extra pawn. So, if we only try, and we play b4, here's what happens. It does this. Unfortunately, the bishop gets stuck on a6. The bishop gets stuck. Actually, the bishop is not in danger yet, but since white cannot extract the bishop without suffering some consequences. There's combination of factors. For example, if you do this, then there is always that, and it's some kind of a back rank thing. Although maybe white could do this, just this and then with the b pawn. I mean, yeah, that would be nice. I'm not sure exactly, but to me, b4 would be much more interesting move. But once again, the stuff is contagious. Just like Magnus invited this whole line by playing rook c8. The same way Karjakin just played it out to a draw. Well, he spent very little time at this moment. Both players had over an hour. Now this is the moment, like this, when the game should slow down. Both players had to look real deep, and look at all possibilities, leaving no stone unturned, because maybe that's the chance. But I don't know. I think this thing exhausted them mentally. The rest of the game was really anticlimactic. Rook c1 was the last good move in this game. And I thought maybe after g6 he should have played king f1. My idea was, of course, to invite this bishop to c3, because then I have the great move a4. And then this put the rook on c6. Yeah, I looked at this. I thought that white would enjoy some chances here, but perhaps I was wrong. I'm not sure. First of all, that I found out in my analysis, that black actually has a threat here, because he can do this. Okay, oh, pardon me. Oh no, he first needs to do this first now, and then he plays that. And now if you put the bishop to b5, now comes rook a5. Amazingly, like all discovered check, whatever checks possibilities, but in fact, the black king comes up, attacks the rook that it in turn has to protect the bishop. So it's entirely possible that black is winning here, or winning a piece. With that in mind, white doesn't have the time. He has to bring the king up. Now this whole thing doesn't work. Now if the bishop is forced to b5, the white king can come to c4. But of course there is check. Okay, look, if this happened, I would understand. And here, oh man, this is this check. And I can't go to c4 yet because of rook d2. You go back and then he returns. You sort of like complete the game, you come to logical conclusion of it. Maybe indeed white just doesn't have it. On king b1 there is another infiltration. And you can't quite keep the black rook out and reorganize your pieces. But I mean, if they agree to a draw now, it would look better to my eyes than after like 30 seconds of thinking. The World Championship match, right, the highest stage. Tie score, no wins for either player. And white just goes rook c2 and 10 seconds thinking time. Just not making any progress, not even making an attempt. Now, and the white rook cannot come out. Obviously all rook trades lead to a draw. Okay, nothing, they went through some motions. Agreed to a draw here. So about this game, it's all but one giant disappointment. Alright, maybe I shouldn't be real harsh about this move bishop d3. I just dislike this move from theoretical point of view. No, right, maybe Karjakin didn't expect the transition to a Queen's Gambit accepted. Okay, then I mean, Carlsen didn't play a 5. I don't know what's up with that. Carlsen wasn't trying. And then Rook C8, clearly inviting this whole thing that happened in the game. You know what? If it wasn't this greatest highest stage, if there were two guys playing next to me in some random, open in the United States, well, I would say that this guys, it just looked like a prearranged draw. I mean, I know if I get in this territory, I'm probably going to lose this job here. Okay, last thing for today. Whew. At some moment, well, Magnus will snap out of this and he will win. I don't know if he's going to win tomorrow. I don't even know if he needs the white pieces to win. I think this is how this whole thing should end. Eventually win for Magnus, and then a little bit of thrashing around, but I think we all realized that they'll be over. We probably knew it even before the match, that if Carlsen scores first, it's gonna be over. Come to see my video. Jesus. That's like a modern internet language, all these emoticons and abbreviations. This is so cute. I don't know if it's about chess, but it's obviously cute. Yeah, so anyway, I'm thinking this is what should happen, and I believe this will happen. I already elaborated on this whole thing. Anyway, okay, we just have to wait. Oh, the computers, the mystique has gone out of the game. It will die in about 15 years. Or become utterly uninteresting. Contest of memory. What memory? It's like, guys, I will elaborate on this. We thought, because computers came and Gary was the king and everybody wanted to be a Gary. Kasparov analyze long variations, amazing sacrifices. Now with computers, memorize it all and then show your brilliance. Guess what? It didn't happen. What computers did, they made the top players totally, utterly disgusted with modern chess theory, and gone all of those anti-Moscow gambits, and the poison pawn variation things, because in the end, that why we played those positions? Well, because we wanted some interesting unbalanced game, and now there's some resolution and offered precise computer variations. You just don't want to play this anymore. So we get to see this, what we were having on the board. Some maneuvering, it's almost anti-computer chess, what modern players are playing. They play each other and they both play anti-computer chess. Okay, this is the last thought for today. Alright guys, sorry if I sound too dejected, too pessimistic or just downright, grumpy. No, well, that's what you love me for. And I know things may change. And tomorrow may be a brilliant game with sacrifices and Magnus wins, and then, well, 2 days later, Karjakin comes back and wins in crushing fashion, equalizes score, and everything's forgotten, and I'm forgotten, I just don't think it's gonna happen. Alright. Keep watching, and I guess I'll catch you next time in December sometime. I'm gonna have my live show scheduled. Don't know what the subject is gonna be, but stay tuned and come with good numbers. Come up with good numbers to participate in my show. Take care, guys. Goodbye.